Today I'm going to do a developer commentary on a mod that I created for Fallout 4 called RadCorp HQ. RadCorp HQ is a discoverable location. It's an underground facility that is found just north of the Beantown Brewery, just across the river from it, and south of the Graygarden settlement. And as I said, this is a discoverable location, so you can get XP for finding it. And it's a underground high-tech facility that belongs to a company called RadCorp. And the first thing I wanted to do, or the first point of note that as we can see here, is there is a RadCorp employee with a hazmat suit on. I wanted to give this mod more of an identity instead of making it just another generic location. So I added in kind of more to the environment to make it feel like an actual location, a place that was inhabited before the war. And obviously the reason they're wearing hazmat suits are, it's clear as you play the mod. And we're going to take this one because we'll need it later. And now we're going to go into the entrance building, which is basically just to take the elevator under the river. And this elevator ride can take quite a long time because it's loading the level in without actually using a loading screen. So we're currently in another cell. But first off, I want to talk about the process I used when creating this mod. So the first thing I did was I wrote down all of the things that I wanted to include in the mod. So I kind of wrote down what I wanted the location to be, what kind of areas there would be, the kind of gameplay that would be involved. This helped me when I opened up the creation kit to make the level. This helped me with the direction that I wanted to go in, and kind of gave me a set of requirements that I could use to complete the project. So I based this location off places like the Federal Surveillance Center, which can be found in the Glowing Sea, and also Green Tech Genetics, which are kind of high-tech places as well, very similar in design. So there's kind of a lot to unpack in this kind of starting area. But first off, I'll draw your attention to the kind of, first to the traders and the ominous atmosphere. But we can actually look out this window and see there's two raiders up there. Obviously, raiders are initially the main enemies in this location. And actually, we could just shoot through this window if we wanted to. I deliberately didn't put glass on windows in some areas because I do believe it makes for better firefights, and it means we could take on the guy here. I'll take on the guy, but then I'll be coming back to this area to speak about some techniques and philosophies that I stuck by when creating the level. So that's kind of the initial kind of firefight to kind of introduce the player to the raiders. And obviously the story is that the raiders came here or found this place before the player and have been using it as a base. Hence the traders must have found it first, obviously, and then the raiders have come down. I put some more RadCorp employees around here, just to make the place feel a lot more ominous and mysterious for the player. Now, the main technique I want to speak about here is there are many places in this mod, because this level is linear, so the start of it is here, you have to come down here, and the end is on the third floor, which we'll get to. But there's many places where the player has a choice on where they can go. So they can, in this instance, go to the left or go to the right, and it's completely up to the player. There's no consequence for going either way, because the player will always make it round to the, or always can make it round to the other side, and this just helps make the level feel a lot less linear than it actually is. I'm not entirely sure. I think these ragdolls like to glitch out a lot, but yes, there's another employee up there. And this is the main area that the player will continue to visit throughout their time playing this level, and I quite like it because the player can then get a sense of progression. They can see where they are, they can see where they've been and where they're going to go, and this kind of adds a lot more context to the level, so we can see the spline there in the upper levels, which we will eventually reach. There's also I've kind of tried to put landmarks, I call them. They're not really landmarks, but they're points of interest, so we can see the two statues, and this just helps the player understand, you know, when they're on different levels, where they are, to help orient themselves. Yes, so I do draw the player's attention to certain aspects of the level. One of these aspects is down here, and it's this, you know, weapon that's just on the desk, and you can't use the door. And this is just kind of a side challenge for the players. Find a way to get this weapon. They don't have to. This is completely optional, but it adds more substance to the level. And this weapon is randomized, so it can be a number of different rifles depending on your level, I think. And there's also kind of dummy ammo and lots of stuff to find in here, because I really want to reward the player for going out of their way to look for the stuff and get the stuff. And in here there's actually some, you know, lore and whatnot that you can read. I won't be going over it in this video. I'll let you discover that for yourself if you want to play the mod. But I just kind of wanted, again, more substance and more of an identity to this level. So that's that little kind of side challenge, which I quite like. Now we're going to see another example of the design where I've made two routes that the player can take. Obviously one's up the stairs, the other one is this way, which leads round through that door. And it's a technique that I like to call circular design, because you're basically going in a circle. Let's see if I can one-shot that guy. Where did the other guy go? Oh.
There you are, you little bastard.
That's not what I wanted. Did I get him? I think I got him blindly through the... Oh, now why is he flickering? Interesting. Anyway, I deliberately put them behind the counter because it makes for quite a good firefight sometimes. That time wasn't so great, but it just depends on the kind of luck of the draw. So sometimes they'll, you know, try and fight, and I put some of these things here so you could shoot them off, although I found out that this jug seems to be invincible to bullets, which is quite unique. And there's lots of food to find. I won't bother picking it all up for everyone's sanity. But yes, this was what I was talking about, the circular design. So now we've done a full circle back to the, you know, the second path that we could take, albeit I think this is the main path. And there's kind of a lot to find on these desks. I kind of really did pack this level with stuff. I can't remember if I discussed this, but I did put stuff up here so the player could shoot it off, albeit I don't always hit. But, you know, in the firefight with the raider that we had at the start. So whilst I do include multiple routes to the same place. There are sometimes some routes in this level which are purely linear and the player has to go. And I believe, you know, this has to be done, because if every area of the level there was multiple routes, it would take forever for the player to traverse the entire level, and also it would be very tedious to also make that, and would require a lot of work and may impact performance. That's my excuse anyway, but it's true. For instance, here I actually had an area that you could go through that door to more offices and then work your way around, but there was just too much of it and it was impacting performance because there were too many routes to take. So I kind of scaled it back and I made it easy to go this way, because I have tried to make it so that you can go anywhere in this facility, but there are at least 2 exceptions. One of these exceptions is here, a door that you can't, you know, get to the room behind it, albeit there's no room behind it anymore, because obviously I removed it for performance purposes. Oh, my ability for combat's not that great, but yeah, these mirrors always give you like really good loot, like stim packs and bobby pins and stuff like that. And these restrooms are based off the ones from Green Tech Genetics, which are very similar. I kind of went round and took screenshots of all my, or the most inspiring locations in Fallout 4, the locations that I like, and then I could use these screenshots to make, make this level, which is very similar to the ones that I've mentioned before. And also there's this little guy, nice little Easter egg. Oh, just knocked him off. He was added very early on. I don't know why I add so many Easter eggs like that. It's just amusing to me. Now, this next bit's rather complex, but I'll try and talk over it from a combat perspective first. So, this window serves many purposes, but one of it's to notice these guys. You can in fact just run right past this window, in which you'll encounter them later on. But yeah, I kind of like the distance involved in this combat scenario. You know, they're not right there, and if you want to be, if you are a melee character, you can run around and get them. But I like the distance. Another purpose for this window is so that you can see the solution to an upcoming problem, which is to try and get through that door. And we'll get round to that when we circle round. As I say, I want to use this middle section as much as possible so the player can feel the sense of progression. This area is actually another instance of circular design, in which I've given two parts of the two routes for the player to take. But in this example, the player has to have a high enough lockpick ability, and I don't, so it becomes a standard area. But we can access it still by going kind of back the way. And this kind of is just to give the impression of the raiders having created this for, as their base, I guess. Oh. Another example of the circular nature of the level. This one's much smaller. As you can see, there's actually ammo that you can pick up there, and I locked this room off Again, much like the room in which I can't remember, the weapon we got. It kind of just, allows the player to come in here and they get rewarded. They actually get a fusion core, which is quite a valuable item in Fallout 4. There's also a chemistry station, which players can use. I think there's another one in this level, but this one's kind of one that they can access if they manage to pick the lock, or if they can pick the lock. Okay, so now we get to the kind of raider boss battle, who has kind of the power armor and the torch. Quite menacing if you hear them speak.
What the? Thought you could hide?
And that's why I kind of left the windows open. I'm going to backtrack. Right, yes, what was I saying? Because my brain power was put into fighting the Raider Psycho. Yes, that's right. So the windows are, have no glass for the purpose that you can, fire. You can fire at the Raiders and they can fire at you. But I've also put in places for the player to be able to kind of hide behind and take cover. So here it's like you can take cover from here, but you're kind of exposed over there. So it's kind of a game of strategy instead of the player just running straight in. Although they can if they want. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about optimization at this point. There's a number of things that I did to optimize this level as it became very slow as time went on, and one reason for this was that this door to the labs that I call the quarantine labs was here throughout the majority of development. It was right here facing this way, and because of that, because of the way that kind of room bounds and portals work, everything in what I call the quarantine lab, it was loaded whenever the player was in this area, even down there. So what I did very late on in development was turn the door around and create a separate room in there, which I'll get to, and that helped to optimize it. So now that whole area is not rendered when you're in this room. Another thing I did to optimize it was only this side has, rooms that you can see out of. I could have potentially made that window here and this window here, you'd be able to see through the glass, but I didn't want it to be too strenuous on the frame rate, so that's why you can't see through these windows. Anyway, let's go around and get to the terminal. So for this kind of terminal to open the door, I wanted there to be multiple ways to do it. So one of which is hacking, so you can hack it, or you can actually find a key to the terminal in this area. So say if the player, found that first, or they couldn't for some reason hack it, then they could get the key and access the terminal. There's kind of messages as to why this terminal exists, as it is a bit it's a bit peculiar to have this thing running to the door, but all of the entries in there explain why. and then it gives a warning from the raiders saying, well, a warning from the raiders to the other raiders saying, don't go in this lab because of the feral ghoul infestation. So that's kind of part of the lore behind this area. Now, this also allowed for the opportunity to have kind of a new dynamic to this level. So we've had kind of the raider combat with the guns, which I think is good. I think it makes for really skillful combat and a really interesting experience. But I also kind of wanted to change things up. So we go into kind of this infested lab. And here we can see that we're dealing with a different type of enemy, with the feral ghouls. So the reason why there's barrels here is because of the incompetence of the RadCorp, board of directors, basically, and they've been making their employees work in terrible conditions, and there's been outbreaks of, radiation sickness, and it's all because of these barrels, which can give off quite a lot of radiation sickness and poisoning. And that's why they're there, and that's why there's green fungus all over the wall. So this is what I like to call the quarantine lab. Oh yeah, this is the room that I added in for optimization, because there's like a room bound in here and then one in here, so the player isn't looking directly into the quarantine lab. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was done for optimization. It's not a great solution, but it definitely does the job, and it definitely made the level run much, much faster. Okay, so at this point, I'm just reminded of this. I will put on my hazmat suit that we picked up at the start. And that's because there's a lot of rooms with these, kind of barrels in them. And here we see another example of circular design, or, multiple routes. We can go to the left, go to the right, and they meet up there, so you can go right round in a full circle. And again, there's no pros or cons to going either way. It's just completely up to the player. So by looking in here, we can see a glowing one of the feral ghouls, and some fusion cores, which are, as I said before, very valuable. And this room's completely optional, so this is kind of like the radiation testing room as it would be in the, RadCorp as it was used before the war.
That's it.
And we're going to go in. Actually, I'm going to get a better weapon to take on the this feral ghoul. I'm glad I got this weapon. And then we can eventually access the loot. And you can also... I've put an extraordinary amount of hazmat suits, and I'm not sure if this is game breaking or not. Like, I'm not sure if these things are supposed to be rare in Fallout 4. Hopefully not. But this place is, you know, Radiation Corporation after all. So it's understandable that there would be quite a lot of them. And now we're up here, and again, this balcony was put in just to kind of give the player some sense of progression or some context as to where they are in regards to this area. So I did say before that this was kind of a new part of the level. This very well could be a level in itself. I maybe could have added more to this, you know, quarantine lab and made it its own cell, but as it stands, it's all within the one cell. And we can see down into the lab that we were in before, and if we walked that way we would eventually reach that location. This is yet again another example of circular design. So we can either go around this way, or let me just get another weapon, or around this way. Now we can clearly see we're on the top floor of the facility. We can see all of the locations we have been previously. So, you know, that we can even see the entrance to the quarantine lab. And this is similar to the kind of puzzle below with the terminal. Actually, I'll open up this safe if I can. If my lock-picking abilities don't fail me.
Nice.
Oh, level 5. In this instance, there's no nothing preventing you from using the terminal. It's literally just to unlock the door, but there's kind of a reason in lore that this is like this, that you can read about. You know, it's all about Dominic St. Vincent, who is the CEO and president of RadCorp, and how incompetent he is. And another reason for that was, you know, to kind of surprise the player with the ghoul ambush. So obviously, if the player's using the terminal, they won't be able to see the ghouls, you know, walking onto the bridge. Albeit, I spawn them in, because they're disabled initially when you initially walk in here, and then I just enable them when you use the terminal, but it kind of gives more of a kind of shocking feeling. Now, my initial plan was to have a leak in the ceiling, because obviously the river is directly above us, and that would create the kind of water pool down there, which we were at the very start. But any of the, you know, waterfall effects or the leak effects I used either didn't look that good or caused too much lag or made it difficult to see. So I ended up removing that feature. So it's a bit of a shame, but it's still, you know, it's a cool idea to kind of like this. The place was leaking before. again, we can either go this way or that way. This is another instance of a door that had to be blocked up. Now, this was never really an area in terms of one you could go to, but I kind of needed to kind of detail this area a bit more. So if adding a window there and a door here would make it seem like you could go around to a small room there. But we're now on the executive floor. So this is where, you know, Dominic St. Vincent and all of his, you know, the vice president and all that. This is where they hang out, in this luscious, almost lounge penthouse type of a place. With porta diners and stuff like that. And this room was made for the same reason as the one in the quarantine lab, in that I had to optimize the level. So initially the door was just, you know, straight into this room, but it was causing an impact on performance, so I had to add in an extra room here facing off this way, and it actually did help optimize the level. Another kitchen, because I for some reason like to make kitchens. You can hear the feral ghoul. No, it wasn't so successful with that one. Now, I had thought about making this place another raider section where there'd be raiders up there and raiders in here, but at the end of the day it didn't make much sense to go back to raiders for such a short space of time when, you know, in terms of design. So I just put more feral ghouls here that have duct tape. And there's a lot of good stuff to find around here. And then we reach the escape tunnel, which for this obstacle I had a few choices to make. So I could have made it so that you could hack the terminal, but I wanted the player to do a bit more digging, so that's why I hid away the key. And in here, this is Dominic St. Vincent's office. As you can see, there's his terminal, and well, there's his safe. And we'll go into the terminal. There's nothing in here but dialogue, but you can read through all of the events from, you know, his view. He's talking about where the key is, and obviously he says the key is in the safe, his safe. So the player has to lockpick the safe, and there's usually some really good weapon in here. It just so happens when I'm recording it, it happens to be a pipe pistol, but it's just it's all random. So sometimes you can get really good weapons in there. But yeah, I wanted the player to kind of explore a bit more and find out more of the lore, and I know it's a bit kind of convoluted to have to lockpick a safe to get a key to then open a terminal to open a door, but I kind of wanted, you know, the player to interact more with the level in the different areas, instead of just them coming here, hacking the terminal and going on their way. And then this allows us to, well, escape basically through the escape tunnel with these skeletons, which you can read about when you read about the story and what's gone on at the RadCorp HQ. And then that's us out. And here we are at the other side of the river, at the south side of the river. We can see there is the Beantown Brewery over there, and we can look back. Yeah, we can look back at the entrance to the RadCorp HQ. So, that is the mods, that's the level. You can download RadCorp HQ from Bethesda.net. There will be a link in the description for it. Thank you for watching.